All right, Jerome, I just pressed record, so we decided to go ahead and press. Gina's having some technical difficulties, but we're going to go ahead and get the ball rolling, and we'll just kind of trickle on in as things start working for us.
Okay.
Oh, we can hear him, so that's good. Okay, so this round is supposed to be, or the peer review is supposed to be more of a round table kind of deal, which, Kelly, we did not do before. And so I'm wondering if that's kind of why it was pointed out as such, because what we would do before is we would actually walk each other through the peer review and go through, you know, why we gave the marks that we did on the peer review. How did you guys do it in your team previously?
What we did was we pulled up my paper and I walked through everyone's comments.
Yeah, so similar to what we did.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about comments I made on other people's papers. I talk about how I understood the comments that they made on mine.
Oh, I see.
And what it meant for changes that I might have to make.
So I think what they're looking for, based off of what Dr. Neal said, is more of just a discussion on the requirements of the assignment as a whole and the things we saw present in each other's papers.
Yes.
So not necessarily going through the entire thing, which I think is awesome because it was very time consuming. We would have 2, sometimes 3 Zoom links for a given assignment. So I guess I'll open up the discussion with task 1. If we just want to start discussing the things or how we approached that part. I know it was pretty lengthy. Right, Jerome?
Yeah, it definitely was. Well, let me go back. Kelly, you may not know, I'm still trying to finish out. This is our last week of school.
Yes.
So everything was very rushed and time consuming for me outside of this. So with looking at some of the feedback that, oh, wait a minute. I think I have the wrong one up. Oh, no, I have the right one up. Yeah, okay. Looking at yours, Amber, I thought your paper was, I'm sorry, your face is covered up because I have the thing up. I thought yours was pretty well put together. And I did like you did. I combined everything. So what I tried to do is I wrote down questions that came to mind as I was just going through your paper.
Okay.
And one of the questions I put, and I did note that it could be a lack of. Oh, I thought you were talking to me.
No, I'm talking to my children.
One of the things I put, because I thought it, and I said it could be a lack of knowledge on my end of Hawaii and military. So your school is it's on a base.
It is. And so I know that's a little confusing. Not every on-base school is a DODEA school. So it's not a government school. It's operated by the district. So it's operated by Honolulu schools. It's just physically located on a base. And we have a few of those here and across the country as well. So I know that even when I taught in California, there was an on-base school, but it was operated by the district.
Okay, because I was wondering if it was if the students who attend were strictly military students, or was it also open to Honolulu students?
It is not. So you have to, generally speaking, you have to have base access. The reason why we're at like 97 or 98% military children is because the other few percent are like our DOD employees. So they live on the base because they are government employees and just happen to be one of the lucky few that got housing that weren't active duty military members. So that's why we're not 100% military. A unique situation for our school, in addition, is that we're held to certain federal mandates as well. So that, like some of the base requirements and things, we have to also adhere to those. So Our principal actually goes to base meetings and safety meetings and things like that to make sure we're holding up our deal with the base as well. So
Okay.
I don't know what all's entailed there, but I do know that I get to sit in on one of those meetings coming up this week, I believe.
Okay. Okay. So with the enrollment, that kind of rolls into my next question. With the enrollment being primarily military families, help me understand why absences was such an issue in the past if everyone is right there on the base, or majority are on the base.
Well, you have to consider that you're dealing with a military community, so they're going to pull their children for things like deployments, family coming to visit. There are certain situations that arise within a military community that aren't necessarily present in a typical school community. So that's why you're going to see higher absences. And then also it just, as I read through the data, some of it could have been a reporting issue as well. Again, we've had some administrative turnover over the last few years.
Okay.
So that could have played a role as well.
Okay. And is it the only Avid school in the area?
No.
Or?
So Honolulu schools, we've all adopted the Avid program. So all schools on Oahu are Avid schools. And I should say the state of Hawaii, I believe, as a whole, because we're a single district. So even though Hawaii has multiple islands, it's all Honolulu School District. So it's huge.
Okay.
Yes.
And my last question for your task one was you said something about the WSF funding that your school has, which is, I guess, dictated by enrollment. Yes. So if enrollment goes down, I assume that some of the funding goes down. So yes. I was kind of wondering, how does that impact you guys for instructional materials and references or resources if it's dictated? Like, have you ever needed something but couldn't afford it because of the whole enrollment situation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you know how in North Carolina we had, was the 20-day count, 10-day count?
20.
20.
10.
10. Oh, okay.
It's 10. Because I remember here it's more, and I was like, oh, it's 20 here, you know. So they get 20 days here, and if they don't meet certain wickets, then you have to look at personnel at that point. So the 500 mark is when you rate an assistant principal. And Kelly, you might not know this, but I think I mentioned it to Jerome and Gina. Our school has been operating without an assistant principal, even at 560 students for the last 2 years, because previous administration and things that had happened had put the budget into the red. And so my new principal that came in decided to operate with only one guidance counselor instead of 2, and only herself as administration in order to bring the budget back where it should be, and it's working. So she's looking at an assistant principal for next school year because we'll be in a better position. Another unique situation with Hickam Elementary is that there is no Title I funding for our school because of our demographic. So we receive federal funds. You know, the federal cards that we have to fill out. Do you guys that you have to do that? I know you do, Gina, but I'm not sure if everybody gets federal funding. Anyway, the more military kids that you service, then the more government funding you receive for your school. So we get that funding, but we do not get Title I funds and things that other schools do. So that's why it's so important that we do grants and the different things that I talked about in the paper, because we kind of have to make up for that gap. And so right now, we're looking at possibly relieving 2 teachers depending on enrollment counts, because if we don't meet the 560, bless you, if we don't meet the 560 enrollment count, then we will have to drop 2 teachers.
Okay.
We'll have to drop 1 if we get to 540. If we get to 540, we'll drop 1. If we're less than 540, we have to drop 2.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you want me to stop at task 1 so everyone can get through task 1, then come back to task 2?
I don't care how we do it.
So, well, one of the things that I saw in task 1, in the 2 that I reviewed, and then when I even reflected on my own, was like in the rubric where it brought out like the critique of the current structures, like looking for, I guess, flaws or so not just describing what the structures are, but also looking at them and saying, well, where does something need to change based upon the structure that I'm describing?
Right, and I think I noticed that was one of the first things I noticed that I had missed in the rubric, even in my paper. And so when I went through and I looked at Jerome's task 1, that was actually something that I recommended because I was like, that was a good catch, Kelly. Because I totally missed that. I think just being overwhelmed with trying to report all the information and trying to hit all those certain things, and then I missed the critique. But it's really important to put that in there, I think, just because you're always looking as an administrator for an opportunity to improve. And I think Kelly especially did that really well. Jerome, I can't remember who you had to critique, but when you get a second, if you haven't read Kelly's paper, you need to do it because she really hit the nail on the head, I think.
Okay.
Was there anything else in 1? Oh, I think it's one where it says, I think the same thing, I guess, with the budget processes, or is that part 2?
The budget was in 1. That was 1.
In 1, okay, so in the rubric for the first task, one of the things, it was talked about under the accomplished section, but then under the description part, it said the degree of involvement of participation of school personnel in making budget recommendations and decisions.
Yeah.
And to determine the degree of inclusion of the school improvement team on the decisions that are made for budget and resource allocation. I think that's another area that we can look at maybe to strengthen.
I think so too. I think what we were running into with this being the end of the year and this being the first week for me out of school too, is just the communication and being able to get up with administration to ask those pertinent questions. So I actually am glad that this was just a draft because I have 2 administrative days coming up this week. So I plan to ask her those things so I can fill in those gaps within my own paper. Yeah.
Me too, with my paper.
Yeah, no, and because I know Jerome was having the same problem with budget because like our budget is public, but as far as like the processes behind that, that's a conversation needs to happen in order for clarification on that one. So that to me already goes to tell me that like, because I'm a teacher, that decision-making process, I'm not a part of that, right?
Right.
So, like, I already know that that's there, but I need to know who is a part of that so I can put that in the narrative.
Right. It's funny, we had field day the last 2 days at my school, and I'm the snow cone person. So I made over 500 snow cones.
You're a master. You're a master.
You gave 500 snow cones?
Just because I did it for the whole school for 2 days and parents that came.
Oh, okay.
But I did the snow cone. But we don't get out until Monday.
And yesterday I took 300 8th graders to Carowinds theme park.
Oof, that's what my husband had to do.
Yeah, well, I feel your struggle.
So I'm gonna ask you guys some questions about your paper that I had, just to kind of keep us rolling.
Okay.
Jerome, for your task 1, again, this comes from conversations that you will have, and then when you go to edit it. But I wanted the questions to be there on the peer review for you, so that it could kind of springboard the conversation that you'll have with your administrator. But I wanted to know, like, you talked about inclusion, which I thought was important, but I'm wondering if there's a specific inclusion model that your school uses. And if you could define that within your paper, I think it would strengthen it.
Okay.
And then also, is there a potential goal that you could strengthen for that specific student population?
For the inclusion population.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Also, I wanted you to expand more on your Men of Excellence program, because I really thought that was something that would be of importance moving forward, especially if you're going to talk about them as a subgroup. But what I was most interested in is the kids that are enrolled in that program, is it making a difference? Like, there needs to be some form of data that you can report showing that. And if there's not, then like Kelly said, within the critique, talk about that. Talk about how, we're off to a great start with this program. Moving forward, we could use this for data purposes to show student achievement. What do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I think so. I think because that will give you a platform too for task 2. Talk about what actions that you're going to take to move the school forward.
And it was implemented like mid-year. I wasn't the one that.
Okay.
I wasn't the one that started it, and I'm not a part of it. But I have students who are a part of it. And through looking at them and their behaviors and academic capabilities within the classroom, I could see that the program is helping more so the students who are struggling academically because of behavior.
So you could possibly meet with the person that's over the program, and as administrator offer suggestions or allow them to do a reflection and their reflection about how to improve the program into part 2 as well.
Okay. All right. I can definitely do that.
Like whatever they say when they do their reflection, areas for growth, then that can be in part 1. And then as a part of your action plan, that could be 2, because that's important because you've already seen it make an impact on who students are and how they see themselves as academic people.
Okay. Definitely. I can definitely do that. I appreciate that advice.
Okay. I think I had a couple questions for Kelly. Let me pull hers up real fast.
I think Gina's still struggling.
I heard you.
I heard you.
Yes.
Yes. You're kind of far away, but we can hear you.
Well, I'll get really close up. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
I feel so out of touch and disjointed because I've joined late, but I'm trying to keep up with what's going on. I'm so sorry. I'm at school and it's this,
No, it's okay. We understand.
We can hear you though.
Great. Fantastic.
So, Kelly, I wanted to touch on your paper a little bit because before we started recording, I was expressing to you how blown away I was. I really enjoyed reading your paper, and it helped me see where I needed to go with my paper even. And I wanted to know if you guys have an active PTO. And I know your demographic, but I think that you had recognized that the parent piece of that decision making was missing. And so I wanted to see, is there an active PTO? What's that look like at your school? Because that could be added to your goals.
So we haven't had a PTA in the 4 years that I've been there, during the 4 years of the turnaround period. And they did not have a PTA before that and haven't had one. 4 years ago, and I didn't include this in the paper, and I could, 4 years ago, to start training parents how to lead, because that's the problem that we're dealing with. So we started a UNC TV night. So UNC TV, they come to our school once a month, and we started the parent ambassadors in that program. So that's something that I can add that we've done to train the parents. And so that cohort of parents that help with that, they are the ones who helped with field day. They're the ones that we've kind of been training on how to talk about things. Mm-hmm. They've shown up at a few school improvement meetings. And so that is something that I could add as a goal. So to take them.
I think you should. And then maybe even talk about how you can strengthen that program moving forward. Just because we all have really great programs already in place at each one of our schools. And so I think that the purpose behind this is to recognize the strengths and then recognize the programs and how we can strengthen them and what we can do to make things even better at our schools.
So that's something that I'll expand on the parent ambassadors and then how to help them become PTO or PTA. Yeah.
What's the difference between PTO and PTA?
Association and organization is the same thing.
Well, PTA costs, I think PTA costs money. So we haven't had the money to pay for PTA. So that's why we haven't had one. A PTO, I think, is cheaper. I think it's like $35 or something. I think it's cheaper. And so that's why we were going to go with a PTO as opposed to PTA.
I think have you heard of a PTSO?
Student, that's in the middle school normally.
Yeah, that's what we have.
Yeah.
The PT. Okay, so there. I guess they vary based on what kind of school you're at.
Right.
I thought they were all the same.
And I think PTA is like a $400 fee, and we don't have the $400 fee, so we haven't had one.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to piggyback on what Amber said to you, Kelly, about the parents. It seems to me that once you get that organization flowing, that maybe your teachers are going to need a little training on how to interact with parents. I know, like reading your paper, you were talking about even when parents and teachers come together, the teachers congregate over into one group and really don't interact with parents. So maybe they need some training too on, what it's supposed to look like when you have parents on campus.
Exactly. The customer service piece.
Yes, I thought that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked how you worded that, customer service.
Yeah.
Like your competency.
Yeah.
Because it really is customer service.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question about, Kelly, about when your exceptional children's teacher meets with your regular teachers for meetings during the week. How does that affect the services they have to provide and how they reach their hours per week if they're in these meetings? How do y'all work it out at your school?
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
How do you work it out at your school as far as the scheduling for those teachers to be able to plan with regular ed teachers?
Well, we have 2 EC teachers. We have a large EC population. Mm-hmm. And we are extended school year and extended day. So I don't get out of school until 3:30 and I have to be there at 7. Uh-huh. So part of our children even stay to 6 o'clock because we feed them dinner. Mm-hmm. And so, the building isn't clear until 3:30. And because we have that extra time, that's why we're able to have the hour and 30 minutes on Monday and Tuesdays for PLCs. That's why.
I see. It's not during your regular instructional school day.
It's during the instructional school day, but we have an extra 45 minutes in our schedule every day. Uh-huh. And so they come in during that 45 minutes each day. So on Monday and Tuesday, we have planning and PLCs, which is 130 minutes. But then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, every teacher has 45 minutes of planning. Mm-hmm. And so it doesn't cut into their hours because it's over the regular school day. Mm-hmm. Meaning we have an extra 45 minutes on the school day anyway. And we have an extra 2 weeks in our school year.
Is 45 minutes enough time to do planning?
Well, that's in most schools or elementary schools, you don't get 45 minutes every day. In most elementary schools, you only get maybe 2 or 3 days a week where you have a 30-minute or 35-minute block where you plan.
Well, I guess us complaining about our 1 hour was was no reason for us to complain.
Yeah, the school that I worked at before this, the only reason we have 5 days a week is because we're an arts magnet and we have 5 magnet programs. So the kids go to magnet every day.
Okay. What school district again?
In Guilford County Schools.
Oh, Greensboro. Okay.
We're actually High Point.
Oh, High Point. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
See, and we get 0.
Oh, you don't get a planning? And this year teachers were struggling with the 1 hour, so now we get an hour and a half this upcoming year.
But we do get a duty-free lunch. But
we get that too.
Yeah, but see,
that's what, like 20 minutes?
Yes, or 30 maybe. But
time does your school begin?
Mine are Amber.
Kicks in at 7:45, and then
and you're out at 2:15.
Yes, and then Wednesdays at 1:15. But we're in meetings. We don't get planning time.
Yeah. So our children arrive at 7, and they don't leave. The bell rings at 3:00. They're not off campus until 3:30.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Right.
I was going to ask you too, in your contextual analysis, you talked about, the transient makeup of your school. How does that work with like materials and consumables? Because I know we find a problem here, even the small amount of military that we serve, we find that sometimes is a problem with our consumables and our materials that we have ordered or have for students or that they're consuming. How do you all handle that being so transient?
Well, so I think we average 4 or 5 extra per class, and that tends to take over. But what I did this year is, like, if I had a student leave, they would leave their math book. And so the new kid would just take that math book and use it for the rest of the year. Because there was no point in giving them a new consumable.
Yeah.
Because they've already missed what we had already used.
Exactly.
So it didn't make any sense. So, and I think that's how a lot of us do it. We just hold on to it and then use it for the next kid. So we do a lot of things by numbers. We don't write their names on things because they're in and out. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, it all works out. And then if our instructional materials don't change, like this year, our math instructional materials are changing. But in the past, when it hasn't changed, then those consumables, if you have like a few left over from one year, you can use it the next year. So it tends to work out. We have about 5 minutes left.
Well, I do want to say that, Kelly, I did find interesting in your paper that the exceptional children's teachers do attend planning with your teachers. Ours do not. And, I really had not, even in my contextual analysis and the narrative piece and all the mandates and things that we meet as far as exceptional children and that we are in compliance with, they do not plan with our regular ed teachers. So I thought that'd be very interesting. And then you said, even though they do plan, they really don't offer a whole lot. So,
but they're very smart. They're capable. But what they do is they'll come, but they won't bring the same materials that we've talked about we're supposed to bring. And so, even when we're discussing their children or their students, they don't offer what it is that they're doing in their classroom unless they're specifically or asked, I guess you could say. And so we want to change that. Like, we want to change what it is they contribute.
I did want to touch on Gina's paper for a quick second. Your paper kind of made me laugh because it was a lot of information, and I didn't make a huge comment on your paper, on your rubric. I just put, because I would explain it here. When I got to the paragraph when you said, during the Great Depression, 1945, I said, okay, she has a lot of information in here. So my main thing for you is I think you have great information in there, but I think some may need to come out. I was just reading, like, I think I noted this too. You said something about like the number of kids that are car riders and how many can be on the school bus. I was just like, I don't want nobody to look at it as if you're trying to put fillers in to make the paper longer.
No.
So, and you said, I don't want to leave anything out. I don't know what to put in there. So you did say that, but that was my only main suggestion for you with task 1 was you have more than enough information in there. And I may not have enough. I know I don't have enough in mind, but you have a lot. You have a lot. But it was a good read, but it's a lot.
Okay.
Kelly, you read Gina's too, right?
Yes. And I just had the similar thing with making sure that as you go through that there's a critique. So like you share the history of your school. Like I can see the context very clearly. And I guess one of the things that I couldn't see was the critique and like I said before, you were able to get the volume working. That's what I also saw in Amber's. And then those are the types of things that I want to improve in mine as well. And so, and one of the things that I saw in yours, like you did a really good job of tying in that the federal, the state and the district policies and things. And that is where I need to strengthen as well to make
That's
sure.
what I couldn't figure out how to do and make it flow.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I struggle with that too.
So when I look at Gina's, and like when she talked about, well, these are the mandates for EC children.
Right.
This is what we're doing, and this is where the gap is. So that might be a way that we can adjust it in there. And so when you look at the critique would be that gap.
Okay.
You know, like,
Yeah.
so it would be that gap.
When I read your paper, I could see that. I could see that you would talk about this is where we are and this is where we need to be and here is the gap. And I could see that I did not have that in mind.
And so I'm going to have to go back. Yeah, I'll have to go back and add the specific laws and things that support the decisions that I made. I kind of made them off of what I know and not necessarily off of specific.
So we have less than 1 minute left. Do y'all want me to send a second invite to wrap us up, or do we want to wrap it up real quick?
Because we have to do task 2 as well, right?
I kind of talked about both of them.
Well, but
I'm fine with wrapping it up. I mean, and most of my comments were the same for task 2 as well.
And I think the main thing is making sure that we use, when we look at the rubric, that we're attending to each of those specific components. And
I agree. And I think your insight on adding the critique was dead on. I think we all need to do that.
I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing was I noticed that in the rubric, it didn't necessarily address all of the things that are in the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure
it has a habit